Mary Elizabeth Dunning, 34, a mother with a weary smile and a heart clinging to hope, answers a knock at the door. A package waits on the stoop, brown paper, pink satin ribbon, the kind of wrapping that whispers extravagance. Inside, chocolate bonbons gleam on a lace handkerchief, a note in florid script tucked beside them. With love to yourself and baby, Missy. Mary's eyes light up. Chocolates are her secret indulgence, a fleeting escape from her quiet, strained life. She sets them aside for dessert, oblivious to the horror within. By midnight, she's screaming in agony, vomiting blood. Her sister Joanna dying beside her. The chocolates, mailed from 3,000 miles away, weren't a gift. They were a death sentence, crafted by a woman whose jealousy could set the world ablaze. Her name? Cordelia Botkin, and her story is a Victorian true crime epic so wild, so intoxicating, it'll seize your soul and never let go. Cordelia Brown was born in 1854 in Kansas City, Missouri, a gritty river town where ambition wrestled with dust. Her early life is a historical fog. Records vanished in floods, memories blurred with time. But we know she grew up in a modest clapboard house on a muddy street. Her father, Thomas Brown, ran a general store, his ledger meticulous but his dreams small. Her mother, Eliza, was a seamstress, stitching bonnets and preaching propriety. Cordelia, their only child, was a spark in their dull world, short, stout, with a plain face but a spirit that could light a prairie fire. She was born demanding attention, a cousin later said, and never stopped. At 10, Cordelia was already a legend at church picnics, sneaking extra pie and telling bawdy tales that made boys giggle and elders scowl. She's too bold, Eliza fretted, tugging her daughter's braids, but Cordelia thrived on defiance. By 15, she'd honed her superpower, confidence. While other girls mastered curtsies, she mastered presence, holding court at dances with a laugh that echoed. "I'm not like them," she'd tell her mirror, brushing off her mother's pleas to be a lady. Her boldness was a shield, masking insecurities about her looks in a world that prized delicate beauty. Her teenage years were a battleground. Kansas City's social scene was rigid, with debutantes judged on poise and prettiness. Cordelia, stocky and plain, was overlooked, her wit dismissed as unladylike. "They don't see me," she'd mutter, her fists clenched, but she refused to fade. At 16, she crashed a society ball uninvited, charming a merchant's son into a dance before his mother dragged him away. "She's trouble," the matron hissed. Cordelia just laughed, her eyes daring the room to challenge her. In 1872, at 18, Cordelia landed a golden ticket. Welcome Botkin, 33, a grain broker whose wealth and prim demeanor screamed stability. Welcome, yes, the name's a cosmic prank, was a man of ledgers, hymns, and starched collars, his mustache a monument to order. Cordelia, all sass and sparkle, was his opposite. Their courtship was a whirlwind. Welcome, smitten by her fire, proposed within weeks. Their wedding was Kansas City's gossip of the season, if only because folks bet on how long it'd last. "She'll eat him alive," a guest muttered, sipping punch. Cordelia's smirk suggested she might enjoy it. The Botkins settled into a brick house on Elm Street, welcoming "Sorry, it's too good" their son, Beverly, in 1874. Life was a postcard, lace curtains, Sunday potlucks, Beverly's giggles filling the yard. But Cordelia chafed at domesticity. She wanted spotlights, not stovetops. By 1876, she was sneaking to photography studios, a splurge that cost a week's wages. "I've posed 100 ways," she'd boast, flipping through sepia prints. Her favorite pose, hands behind her head, elbows out, chest forward, was a scandal in an era when women hid their curves. "She looks like a saloon girl," a neighbor hissed. Cordelia framed the photo anyway. Photography was her rebellion. In the 1870s, images were a luxury, reserved for the elite. Cordelia treated herself like royalty, commissioning portraits that shocked Kansas City. "I'm art," she'd say, ignoring Welcome's frowns. Her boldness strained their marriage. "You're embarrassing me," he'd snap after she flirted at a market. "And you're killing me," she'd retort, dreaming of bigger stages. By the mid-1880s, their fights were legendary. She called him a wet rag, a servant leaked, and Welcome's prayers for her soul went unanswered. In 1888, Welcome's job with the Armor Packing Company moved them to Stockton, California, a dusty town of orchards and gossip. Cordelia despised it. "This is purgatory," she'd groan, eyeing San Francisco's glow. The marriage was a husk, and in 1894 they separated, still legally tied. Divorce was a social guillotine. Welcome stayed in Stockton, paying alimony and sparking a fling with Clara, the landlady, during visits. Cordelia, with Beverly, now 20 and a quiet clerk, fled to San Francisco, ready to reign. San Francisco in 1895 was a city of extremes, Gilded mansions, filthy slums, and the Barbary Coast. A neon-lit jungle of saloons, brothels, and gambling dens. Cordelia, 41, stormed in like she'd written the script. Short, stout, with a face more sturdy than stunning, she carried herself like Venus. She acted like the world owed her a crown, a barmaid named Rosie said. She hit the coast hard, downing whiskey with sailors, betting on poker, and talking sex like it was small talk. "Call me one of the boys," she'd laugh, clinking glasses at the Black Pearl Saloon. Victorian women were expected to be chaste, silent, and church-bound. Cordelia was a walking rebellion. She'd hold court in dive bars, her voice cutting through cigar smoke. Posed for another photo today, she'd crow, describing her latest elbow-out stance, her skirt hiked just enough to scandalize. Her 100 poses claim was no exaggeration. Photography was her defiance, a woman claiming her image in a world that demanded she vanish. She'd lug her prints to bars, passing them around like trophies. "This one's my best," she'd say, pointing to a shot with her chin tilted, eyes daring the camera. Men cheered, women left. Her reputation grew notorious. "She's the town whore," society matrons sneered, their gloved hands clutching fans. Cordelia winked. Hate's just love in disguise, but her bravado hid cracks. She was lonely, her confidence a mask for a heart that yearned for more than fleeting flings. Her son, Beverly, lived in her shadow, renting a room on Mission Street and working as a clerk while she partied. Welcome's alimony kept her afloat, but she craved love, not just lust. She wanted someone to see her soul, Rosie later said, not just her act. That hunger led her to John Dunning. In June 1895, Cordelia was gossiping in a park near the Golden Gate Bridge with her friend Maggie, a fellow Barbary Coast regular, when a bicycle chain snapped nearby. John, 32, was a star reporter for the Associated Press. His 1889 dispatches on a Samoan typhoon, sinking warships, sparking war fears, making him a legend. Promoted to superintendent of the AP's Western Division in San Francisco, he was tall, cleft-chinned, with eyes that promised trouble. His marriage to Mary Elizabeth, 30, a Delaware devout, was fraying. Mary missed her church, her family, and Dover's calm. John's late nights and aloofness left her feeling like a ghost. "I'm invisible," she'd write to her mother, Sarah. When John saw Cordelia, he froze. The most beautiful creature, he later gushed, though historians suspect whiskey-tinted lenses. Her energy, bold, unapologetic, hooked him. Ignoring Victorian rules, no unchaperoned chats, he strode over, kicking his broken bike aside. "I'm John Dunning," he said, flashing a grin. "Mind if I sit?" Cordelia's eyes sparkled, sizing him up like a card shark. "If you can keep up, reporter," she purred. Maggie raised an eyebrow, sensing trouble. They talked until dusk, trading tales of ambition and heartbreak. John spoke of deadlines and typhoons. Cordelia spun stories of Kansas City's scandals and her 100 poses. By sunset, they were laughing like old friends, the air crackling with chemistry. John was smitten. Cordelia was electrified. San Francisco's wildest affair had begun. John and Cordelia were gasoline and a match. She dragged him to the Barbary Coast's darkest corners, opium dens where shadows danced, poker tables where fortunes vanished, brothels where she was greeted like royalty. "This is living," she'd shout, tossing back whiskey at the Black Pearl. John, used to newsrooms and ink-stained fingers, was dazzled. "She's not like Mary," he'd tell colleagues, ignoring their raised brows. They drank, gambled, and, well, let's say they weren't knitting. Cordelia paraded John like a trophy, her arm looped through his at saloons. "He gets me," she'd purr, framing a photo of them laughing, his hand on her shoulder, a pose that could have landed them in jail for indecency. The affair was no secret. They were spotted at dive bars, her hand on his knee, his laugh too loud. "He's throwing his life away," an AP editor, Charles Grayson, warned, shaking his head. Mary Elizabeth, home with their daughter, little Mary, 4, heard the whispers. "John's with that Botkin woman," a church friend, Emily Harper, hissed during a hymn. Mary confronted him, her voice trembling in their cramped apartment. "Is it true, John?" He shrugged, avoiding her eyes. "You're imagining things." But his rumpled suits, reeking of whiskey and cheap perfume, told the truth. Mary, raised on faith and duty, was humiliated but stayed, praying he'd return to her. Cordelia reveled in the chaos. "His wife's a prude," she'd tell barflies at the Black Pearl, tossing her hair. "She doesn't deserve him." But her bravado masked pain. She was falling for John, hard, and his wedding ring was a splinter in her heart. Late at night, after the bars closed, she'd sit in her hotel room staring at their photos. "You're mine," she'd whisper, tracing his face. She'd urge him to leave Mary, half joking at first. "Run away with me, Johnny," she'd tease, pouring him a drink. John laughed it off, but the seed was planted. By 1896, Mary had reached her breaking point. The gossip was unbearable, her faith shaken. Packing little Mary, she fled to Dover, moving in with her parents, John and Sarah Pennington. Her father, a congressman with a steely gaze, was livid. "That man's a disgrace," he growled, vowing to protect his daughter. Mary's departure left John free to spiral. With Cordelia, he partied harder, betting fortunes he didn't have at underground card games. Debts piled up, and in late 1896, he stole $4,000 from the AP, $126,000 today, to cover losses. His bosses caught on, and he was fired. "You idiot," Cordelia cackled, pouring him a drink at the Black Pearl. Now what? John, jobless and broke, leaned into the chaos, but the thrill was fading. "I'm drowning," he confessed to a friend, staring at his empty glass in a foggy saloon. Cordelia, sensing his drift, clung tighter, her laughter sharper, her photos more desperate. "We're a team, Johnny," she'd say, her voice edged with fear. But John's eyes were wandering, his heart pulling east. In March 1898, the Associated Press offered John a lifeline, cover the Spanish-American War in Cuba. It was a chance to rebuild his career, his reputation, his life. He seized it. One foggy night in Cordelia's hotel room, he dropped the bomb. "I'm done with this life," he said, his voice steady. "The drinking, the gambling, you. I'm going to Cuba, and when I'm back, I'm winning Mary Elizabeth over." Cordelia's jaw dropped, her glass frozen mid-sip. "You're leaving me?" she screamed, her voice cracking like glass. "For that church mouse?" John stood his ground, his cleft chin set. "It's over, Cordelia. I'm sorry," she exploded, begging, sobbing, hurling a whiskey bottle at the wall. "You can't do this," she cried, her face streaked with tears. "I gave you everything." John turned away, his bags already packed for Havana. The door slammed, and Cordelia was alone, the silence deafening. Her world collapsed. She stopped posing, stopped laughing, her hotel room a cave of whiskey bottles, crumpled photos, and half-written letters to John, never sent. "He was mine," she'd mutter, staring at their picture, her fingers tracing his smile. Depression swallowed her, but it didn't last. Rage took over, a fire that burned hotter than her love. "If I can't have him, no one will," she vowed, her mind churning with vengeance. She remembered John's stories, Mary Elizabeth's sweet tooth, her San Francisco friend Missy who sent her letters. A plan formed. Diabolical, creative, pure Cordelia. From February to July 1898, Mary Elizabeth received anonymous letters in Dover, detailing John's affair with an extremely attractive woman. The handwriting was ornate, the tone venomous. "He's hers now. Don't take him back." Mary, heartbroken, hid them in a drawer, her faith shaken. "Who would do this?" she'd whisper, tears falling. On July 31st, Cordelia struck. At George Haas Confectionery, she bought half a box of chocolate bonbons, telling clerk Henry Miller, "I'm adding my own chocolates." At the Owl drugstore, she purchased arsenic, claiming it was for hat cleaning. At the City of Paris department store, she grabbed a lace handkerchief, leaving the price tag on. At a post office, she mailed the package to Mary Elizabeth, signing, "With love to yourself and baby, Missy." August 9th, 1898. Dover's heat was brutal, but the Pennington family gathered for dinner. Trout, corn fritters, laughter. Mary Elizabeth, still reeling from the letters, was quieter, her smile forced. The chocolates delivered that morning were her bright spot. A gift from Missy, she told her mother Sarah, her voice lifting. After dinner, with the house sweltering, they moved to the porch, the air heavy with jasmine. "Let's have those chocolates," Mary said, fetching the box. By 10 p.m., horror struck. Tommy and Lizzie vomited but recovered, their young bodies resilient. Mary and Joanna weren't so lucky. Screams pierced the night, cramps, bloody diarrhea, delirium. "It's burning me," Mary gasped, clutching her stomach. Sarah, frantic, sent for the family doctor, Dr. Ellis, who arrived in a sweat-soaked shirt. "Food poisoning," he declared. "Bad fritters." John Pennington, a congressman with a razor-sharp mind, wasn't convinced. "I ate the fritters, I'm fine," he snapped, his voice low with suspicion. A second doctor, Dr. Harper, arrived at dawn, his face grim. "Arsenic poisoning," he said, his hands trembling. "There's no saving them." Mary and Joanna suffered for 3 days, their bodies ravaged. "Make it stop," Joanna begged, her eyes wild with hallucinations. Mary, clutching little Mary's doll, whispered, "I'm sorry," before slipping away. On August 12th they died, hours apart, their screams echoing in the Pennington home. The neighbor kids survived, but the family was shattered. John sent the remaining chocolates to Dr. Wood, a chemist in Philadelphia, who tested them in a lab filled with bubbling vials. His verdict was chilling: arsenic, enough to kill a dozen men. This was deliberate murder, Wood said, handing John the report. John Pennington, 60, was no ordinary grieving father. A Delaware congressman with a network of power, he was a man of action, his grief fueling a relentless quest for justice. He wired John Dunning in Cuba, where he was dodging bullets in Havana. Mary's dead. Poisoned. Come now. John, gutted, boarded a steamer, arriving in Dover on August 22. At the Pennington home, he broke down, clutching little Mary, now 5, her wide eyes searching his face. "Where's Mama?" she asked. John had no answer, only tears. Cleaning Mary's things, Pennington found the anonymous letters, their cruel words stabbing at his heart. John's hands shook as he read them. "Cordelia's handwriting," he said, his voice hollow. He pulled the chocolate box's note from a drawer, same florid script. "She knew Mary loved chocolates," John admitted, his face ashen. "I told her about Missy, her friend from San Francisco. She used it." Pennington's eyes blazed, his fists clenched. "She killed my girls," he growled, his voice a vow. Pennington called the Dover police, who were out of their depth with a cross-country murder. They contacted San Francisco's chief Isaiah Lees, a detective legend who'd pioneered mugshots in 1854, his office a gallery of criminal faces. Lees, 60, with a beard like a prophet and instincts like a bloodhound, assembled a crack team: Detective Tom Regan, a gruff Irishman with a nose for lies, and Sergeant Ellen Carter, a rare female officer whose sharp eyes miss nothing. "This is a new kind of crime," Lees told them, studying the chocolate box. "Poison by post. Let's hunt her down." The investigation was meticulous. They traced the package's components: brown paper and pink ribbon from George Haas Confectionery, where clerk Henry Miller, a nervous 19-year-old, recalled a stout, frumpy woman buying half a box of bonbons. She said she'd add her own chocolates, Miller stammered, avoiding Lees's gaze. The lace handkerchief led to the City of Paris department store, where saleswoman Grace Harris, a chain-smoking widow, swore the buyer looked like my dead mother: short, heavy, bold as brass. Post office clerk John Dunn, a meticulous man with ink-stained fingers, remembered a short woman mailing a box to Mrs. John Dunning in Delaware. "She paid in cash," Dunn said, and left fast. The arsenic came from the Owl drugstore, where pharmacist Clara Evans recalled selling it to a woman matching Cordelia's description. She said it was for hat cleaning, Evans noted, but her eyes were shifty. A search of Cordelia's room at the Victoria Hotel was a jackpot. Detective Regan kicked in the door, revealing a cluttered space, whiskey bottles, photo albums, and, in a drawer, leftover brown paper, pink ribbon, and string matching the package. She didn't even hide it, Regan marveled, bagging the evidence. A handwriting expert, Professor Daniel Hayes, compared the letters and note to Cordelia's love letters to John, found in her room. Clerks' testimonies, handwriting analysis, the hotel room finds. But flaws loomed. No autopsies were performed. Dover's hospital believed Mary and Joanna's vomiting purged the poison, making post-mortem tests unreliable. And not all chocolates tested positive for arsenic, suggesting uneven lacing. "That could sink us," Lees confided to Regan, pacing his office. But the jury didn't blink. The circumstantial case, motive, means, opportunity, was ironclad. Cordelia was indicted for 2 counts of first-degree murder. On November 1st, police tracked her to her sister's house in Healdsburg, California, a quiet town 70 miles north of San Francisco. Officers Mike Sullivan and Patrick O'Malley knocked, expecting a sobbing confession. They got theater. "I'll pack," Cordelia said, her voice cool as she stuffed a trunk with dresses, hats, and photo albums. The trunk was so heavy Sullivan grunted, nearly dropping it. "She's stalling," O'Malley muttered, "or planning a fashion show in jail." Cordelia smirked, her eyes daring them to underestimate her. As they cuffed her, she tossed her hair. "You've got the wrong woman," she said, her voice dripping with defiance. Cordelia's trial, starting December 6, 1898, was San Francisco's obsession, a spectacle that dwarfed even the gold rush. The courthouse was a madhouse, spectators camping overnight, some bribing bailiffs for seats. The San Francisco Chronicle and Examiner fueled the frenzy, splashing headlines about Cordelia's vain photos and immoral life. She posed like a harlot, one Chronicle editorial sneered, printing her elbow-out photo, which sold papers like wildfire. Reporters dubbed her the Chocolate Killer, a moniker that stuck like tar. Outside the courthouse, vendors sold candy and arsenic-themed trinkets, ironic, morbid, and wildly profitable. Cordelia, 44, played the part like a seasoned actress. In a black dress, white lace handkerchief in hand, she looked like a mourning widow, her face a mask of calm. "She's performing," Juror Thomas Walsh whispered to a neighbor, noting her calculated dabs at dry eyes. District Attorney William Barnes, a bulldog with a booming voice, laid out the case with precision. Clerks from the candy store, department store, and post office testified, their descriptions aligning. A short, stout woman with a bold air. Grace Harris, the department store clerk, stole the show, her gravelly voice cutting through the room. "She bought that handkerchief like she was buying a throne," Harris said, earning a chuckle. The handwriting expert, Professor Hayes, was damning. Displaying enlarged samples on a courtroom easel, he showed how Cordelia's love letters matched the poison pen notes and the chocolate box's card. "No doubt it's her," he testified, his pointer tapping the loops and flourishes. The hotel room's paper, ribbon, and string were the smoking gun, presented in a velvet-lined box like relics. "She left a trail a mile wide," Barnes told the jury, his voice rising. John Dunning's testimony was a circus. The defense, led by attorney George Knight, a slick lawyer with a waxed mustache, grilled him about his lovers, hoping to pin the murder on another scorned woman. John, haggard and sweating, admitted to 3 flings besides Cordelia but refused to name them. "I won't ruin their lives," he said, his jaw tight. Judge Carroll Cook, a stern man with a walrus mustache, tossed him in jail for 2 nights to jog his memory. John held firm, earning a grudging nod from the gallery. "He's got spine," a spectator muttered, scribbling in a notebook. Cordelia's turn on the stand was pure theater. Her lawyers, Knight and Henry McPike, coached her to sound sweet, not sassy, but she couldn't resist flair. In a lilting voice, she insisted she bought arsenic for my hat to clean the felt. "The chocolates? No clue," she said, her eyes wide with mock innocence. Knight floated an alibi. A friend, Maggie Sullivan, who'd swear Cordelia was at a saloon all day July 31st. Maggie never showed, later admitting she'd been drunk and couldn't recall. "She's lying through her teeth," Barnes told the jury, pointing to the evidence pile. The trial wasn't just a legal battle, it was a cultural earthquake. Women's groups picketed, some decrying Cordelia as a fallen woman, others arguing she was a victim of a sexist society that punished her boldness. Men like Dunning walk free, a suffragist pamphlet raged, while women like Botkin burn. The Examiner ran a daily chocolate killer column, speculating on her motives and printing reader letters. From "hang her" to "she's a heroine," San Francisco was split. Cordelia was either a monster or a martyr. On December 30th, after 4 hours, the jury convicted her. The courtroom erupted, spectators cheering as Cordelia sat stone-faced. On February 4th, 1899, Judge Cook sentenced her to life, his gavel a thunderclap. A billboard outside, Victorian Twitter, flashed updates, and the crowd roared like it was a prize fight. Cordelia was led away, her head high, her handkerchief fluttering like a flag of defiance. Cordelia didn't do incarcerated quietly. In San Francisco's county jail, she worked her old magic, charming guards with promises of favors. Some whispered sexual, others financial. By spring 1899, she had a private cell with a feather mattress, hot meals from a nearby tavern, and day passes to shop on Market Street. "She's running the place," a prisoner grumbled, eyeing her silk shawl. In May, Judge Cook spotted her browsing a boutique, free as a bird, her arms laden with hat boxes. "She's supposed to be locked up," he roared, launching a probe. The investigation was a farce. Guards, likely bribed, swore it wasn't her. Cordelia played innocent, spinning a tale of a doppelganger killer. "I've a twin out there," she told a guard, her eyes twinkling. "Find her!" The guard rolled his eyes, but the story spread, fueling tabloid headlines like Botkin's double. The probe stalled, evidence was thin, and the guard's silence was ironclad. Cordelia's antics continued, her cell a revolving door for visitors, from reporters to old Barbary Coast pals. "She's still the queen, Rosie," the barmaid said, sneaking her a bottle of gin. In 1904, her lawyer, Henry McPike, pushed for a retrial, citing the missing autopsies and uneven arsenic tests. Cordelia, ever the diva, saw a chance for freedom. The second trial, starting August 2, 1904, was quieter. The city's frenzy cooled. Barnes, now grayer, presented the same damning evidence, and the jury convicted her again. "She's guilty as sin," juror Patrick Flynn said, sipping coffee post-verdict. Cordelia's dreams of freedom crumbled. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake changed everything. The quake leveled her jail, destroyed trial records, and killed 3,000, leaving the city in chaos. Cordelia was transferred to San Quentin, a brutal fortress for death row inmates, its stone walls a far cry from her cozy cell. She wilted, her charm useless against hardened wardens. Her health crumbled. Arthritis, headaches, a cough that wouldn't quit. On March 7, 1910, at 56, she died of softening of the brain due to melancholy.